Are we live? Are we ready to go?
Yeah, Tamia is setting us up right now.
Okay.
Give us the okay when we're ready, Tamia, please.
Okay, we're live.
Okay, we're going to call the meeting to order. This is the April 21st meeting of the Finance Authority, April 21st, 2020 remote phone meeting, I guess, of the Finance Authority of New Orleans. Stephen Smith here as the chairman of the board. Could everybody else please announce their presence?
This is Damon Burns. I'm sorry, Mr. Thomas, go ahead, please.
Hunter Thomas here.
Damon Burns, Finance Authority of New Orleans.
Giselle Johnson Banks, Vice Chairperson of the board.
Andronica Morris, member.
Bianca Brown, Finance Authority of New Orleans.
Byron Badger, Finance Authority of New Orleans, CFO.
Staff, please announce your presence as well. I know you're not participating in the active agenda, but please announce your presence to the public.
Tamia Mickey, Administrative Assistant, Finance Authority of New Orleans.
Did we hear from Mr. Chase? I thought I heard that he was there, but I didn't hear him announce himself.
Yeah, he's on. He must be on mute.
So it's according to the roll call, we do have a quorum, so we're ready to begin the meeting. Do we have any old business that we need to discuss?
No, sir, we do not. We do not have any old business today.
And I believe that there have been no public comments.
We did not receive any public comments before the meeting. Thank you.
Okay, so we can move up to action item number 5, which is the new business. First and foremost will be the approval of the February 21st, 2020 board meeting minutes. Has everybody had a chance to review the minutes?
I'll make a motion to accept the minutes, to approve the minutes, Mr. Chair.
I second that motion.
All in favor?
Member.
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? That signifies an approval of the minutes for the February 21st, 2020 board meeting. Moving on to action item B, approval of the pilot policy.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Smith. The pilot policy, as a refresher to the board, is the policy document that will govern our new pilot program, which is a function of the CEA that we signed with the city of New Orleans earlier this year. As you recall, prior to the interruption of COVID-19, we were in the process of launching new programs, and we were also in the process of completing another CEA with the Louisiana Housing Corporation and the city of New Orleans. So the two of the biggest milestones remaining to getting that program off the ground before the interruption, one was the pilot policy, which we will present to you for approval today. And then secondly, the CEA with LAC and the city of New Orleans. That CEA needs city council approval. So we're currently working with the city to figure out how to move that deal forward as well, despite the interruption. So because we're able to have online meetings, we communicated to the city that we're going to move the agenda forward. So they said they would try to accommodate as much as possible. So once we're able to approve our pilot policy and get the policy with the city signed, that will allow us to officially launch the program. But first things first, we present to you the final draft of the pilot policy. We presented this to you in multiple drafts and have solicited the feedback of the development community. We've solicited the feedback of other key stakeholders. And this is the policy that we would like to begin the program with, although we don't have final approval from the city of New Orleans to move forward just yet. We would like to start communicating this information to the development community. And we'll have a conversation a little later on in the meeting about our development pipeline. But the idea is that we want to move this program forward as much as we can, despite the current situation. So I think it will be helpful, since we've been away for a little while, to just get one more quick refresher before we ask for a final vote on this. So Jay Brown Russell, our general counsel, is on the line. So Jay, please provide the board with a brief update on the process that we went through to complete this document and what this document is going to do for us moving forward. Jade, are you there? You're on mute.
You're muted.
Here you go.
Can y'all hear me?
Yes.
We can now, Ms. Russell.
I'm sorry. I'm sorry, Damon. Repeat what the last thing you said.
Now, I was asking for to give the board a refresher on the pilot policy, the process it took to complete the document, and the purpose of this document going forward as it relates to our developer program.
Sure. So this document really is going to dictate the process, or the flow of process, for pilot transactions, as well as transactions that have, or projects that I should say, projects that have bond financing, tax credit financing, or other types of financing packages that we might offer. And so there are a couple of components that are included in this, and then there are a couple of components that kind of work outside of this, but all kind of in the same flow of process. So there is the policy document, there is a pre-application, and there is an application. The pre-application and the application are actually referenced in the document, but those documents right now are, I think, very close to being finalized, but they will take on a different format once the staff identifies the platform that it'll sit in. So I'll put that on the side, and focus on the policy document. So this policy document, number one, first and foremost, outlines the authority that that FANO has to issue pilots. That is very important, because we are a public trust, and the beneficiary of that trust is the city of New Orleans. By state law, we're authorized to issue payments in lieu of taxes once those structures are approved by the city council. As you know, we've gone through that process. The city council has signed off on us issuing the pilots. They've been very close to us in terms of the preparation of this document, and have signed off on this document as it currently stands. This document also, though, sets out the process from soup to nuts, beginning with a pre-submittal conference with the staff, where a developer, as an example, would come in, would meet with the staff, have conversations about their proposed project, complete a pre-application that ensures that they meet the criteria for moving forward with a full application. Once they do that, they will receive the full application from FANO, complete that, and then a series of approvals, beginning with the underwriting committee and ending ultimately with the full board approval in the case of pilot-only projects. We talked about this once before, those projects that include more than just a pilot. So those projects that have bond financing or tax credit financing, there are a few additional steps in that process that include Louisiana Housing Corporation, as Damon already pointed out, as well as the bond commission, Louisiana State Bond Commission. So again, this document lays out the full process, and it also just kind of lays out some of the protections that FANO has created to ensure that the program meets the underlying spirit and intent of the program, which one is to create more affordable housing, particularly in inclusionary zones, and secondly, ensures that all of those other factors that are considered to be benefits for the city of New Orleans, that those are, for example, DBE participation, number of jobs, both permanent and temporary, to ensure that all of those metrics are built into this process. So that is what, in short, that was kind of long, but in short, that's what this policy entails.
Yeah, and to add to the information that Jay just delivered, the the policy is a living, breathing document. It's going to evolve. We've already had conversations with the city about concepts that would like to try that are not in the current pilot document. We've already heard from the development community about its take on the policy. So it's going to be something that we have to develop over time and continue to improve upon. But what this does, again, what that CEA did and what this policy does to govern the CEA is it provides, as Jade said, affordable housing. It provides economic development for the city first and foremost. But then as an agency, as a finance authority, it provides us with the authority to utilize city resources, public financing resources, but also create new revenue streams that the authority hasn't had in the past. So with those new revenue streams, of course, we'll be able to support more community programs and operations, but we're specifically looking to utilize new revenue streams to help us with the business model transition that we're going through. So as much as we possibly can, utilizing all of our resources to effectuate the business model transition, which is designed to bring more affordable housing and economic development opportunity to the city. So this policy is what we'll use to guide the program, and we'll use it to, like I said, continuously get feedback and information from public and from the developer community. Remember that one of our focuses of this program is to support smaller developers, particularly smaller developers that are building more affordable housing. That's a mandate that the city has been pushing for some time. It's one that we're taking seriously. So, we have plans to use this program in a very positive way. And this policy, like I said, is a step towards us being able to underwrite transactions and bring them to life. So with that, Mr. Chair, I'll pass it back to you. Staff recommends approval of this policy document, and we seek that approval from the board today.
Do any of the board members have any questions regarding what is contained in the pilot program agreement and what has just been explained to us by Damon and by Jade?
Yeah, I have a question. I saw somebody else go. It looked like somebody else was trying to speak.
Go ahead.
So, and by BTW guys, I just got a note. One of my team members tried to do the YouTube, and she said that she doesn't have anything.
I mean, it says up on my screen that we're
It
live
says broadcasting. Yeah.
I mean, I don't know what.
So anyway, So the questions that I have, number one, Damon, just to circle back on the last point that you made, smaller developers, this is going to align with the policy that's already in place is that you're talking about 10 units and above. We're not talking about below that yet, right? But you're talking about smaller developers who could be, building something like 15, 20 units.
Right, but even to that
Yeah.
point, this policy calls for 10 units and above, but we know there's still developers that are building 5 units and that they have units from FANO or New Orleans Redevelopment Authority, and there's a missing piece of financing even for that size developer too.
So this does allow for going outside of the MIZ strategy and affording this so that the Finance Authority can provide this for deals at almost any size.
Well, that is the evolution of the document. The next step is we need to figure out how to include deals smaller than 10 units into the policy.
Okay, so it's not included in the policy yet, but that's where we want to get it to. Okay, that's the part that I wanted, because I was like, wait, where's that? And again, that's something that I would very much like to see, but I just wanted to make sure I hadn't missed something on the document. Yes. And the one thing that I'm concerned about is that's still a point of concern. 2 things: the relationships with the LHC and the city. Housing Corporation authorized last month when they felt compelled to move forward with their business. One of the things that they did do was move forward with authorizing their contract or approving, I should say, the plan that the Finance Authority submitted so that the Finance Authority can originate its own bonds to support 4% deals. And I was wondering, I thought we'd see that today too as a part of this package. Are we going to see that later, or?
Yeah, because you've already signed off on?
They already did that one. Okay.
Yeah, you've already signed off on it. We're waiting on the city to sign off so that we can put them all together. So the city's the last signature. Yeah. We were the first and the city will be the last.
Okay, gotcha. All right. And that's what I wanted to get clarification on, because that was the part that I was missing. And then so back to this document, this piece, one of the concerns that I raised, there you are, thank you, ma'am. I'm not sure where I'm texting her and telling her that you're in the wrong place.
Yeah, it's definitely streaming. I see you on the YouTube stream now.
Yeah, no, Giselle just showed me. And
okay,
Stacy texted me. So yeah. Okay, yeah. So what was I saying? Oh, back to the issue that we raised the last time is covering the cost of this program over the long term. I know you guys have a strategy. Hold on. Email Stacey. I'm going to have her email you to get the right link, because she doesn't have the right link. So I'm sorry about that. Because yeah, she needs to be able to share this information with our partners and stuff like that. So that's why I wanted to make sure she could participate. Anyway, so as I was saying, the concern that I raised was about how you guys we're gonna cover the cost of this in the short run and in the long run. And the real estate market is about to change majorly as we come out of COVID-19. There's definitely going to be a price adjustment, a value adjustment of what things are worth, and there's going to be, I think, a need for more capital to get things going and make these projects easier. So I'm not suggesting that we don't need to do this, but one of my concerns is, again, the volume for the Finance Authority to be able to maintain the level of staffing necessary to do this without any, immediate income coming in, and getting assistance from the city in overhead. That was how the original program was conceived, that there would be some financial reimbursement to the finance authority, to whoever administered this part of the program. And so I was just wondering if we moved any farther with that, and yeah, whether or not that's even on the table.
Sure. So I've had the conversation with the city. I am putting together a formal request that's going to go along with the final approval, or ahead of the final approval, but I'm putting it before the city council as well, because they've actually asked us, what resources we need in order to manage these programs.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm going to attach that formal request. We've had the conversation in person, but in terms of the written request that you're talking about, we haven't had any progress on it. So that's going to be a part of this next stage of approval that we have to get from the city.
Yeah, and I think it's something we're just going to have to monitor and look out for. Again, you know my feelings around this program. I have long held, before joining this body, that this was the place that this program needed to live and it needed to run. And I've always seen that as an opportunity for the Finance Authority to take its rightful place inside of this market and leading on this issue. But that can't just be a commitment just for the sake of it, from this side. And that's not just me being a part of this body. That's also looking out for this community in the long run. This Finance Authority hobbled and weakened doesn't do us any good. And I know I'm preaching to the choir here, but that's why I want to be, really clear and emphatic about that part, because I think there is an opportunity for a win-win here. But like I said, the market's about to change drastically. I think this is going to take even longer to get off the ground, to get the deals moving, just because people are waiting to see what is going to shake out. And I think it'll be relatively quickly, because we've got an assessment. The assessment's going to have to open the rolls relatively soon. We'll start getting some indication about where value is headed. And then people will have a better idea where the gaps are. So I don't think it's going to take too long, but I do think the market's going to have to settle before we can get these going. Because some people's gaps might increase, some people's gaps might decrease. So, yeah.
Yeah, we're going to keep pushing the issue. We're going to keep pushing the issue with the city, and I'll share the formal request with the board.
Great, thank you. That's all I have, Mr. Chair.
Is there anything that we need to be concerned with, Damon, about like the points that Andronika just brought up? If we're going forward with what we have in front of us today, are we going to have a problem coming back and readdressing these issues to insert them in there? Particularly from my point of view, doing, projects that are less than 10 units. I mean, is that something that we think is going to cause a problem, or is it something that we think that is going to be handled relatively easily?
No, and I would like Jay to chime in here too, but what we've discussed with the city is that the pilot policy or structure in its current form is not perfect. It's what we thought was the best starting point, but there will need to be adjustments over time, especially as the market changes and policies need to change. So we built it keeping in mind that it would need to be adjusted over time. Some of these issues are locked into the inclusionary zoning requirements, and that's beyond our scope of authority. But in terms of the way that this document is structured, it's intended that it will change over time. Jay, do you have anything to add to that based on the conversations we had with the city?
No, I don't disagree with anything you just said, Damon. I think to Damon's earlier point, this will be a living and breathing document, particularly in the early stages, Stephen. So I think what you will see staff kind of pivoting where they have to, but all in the constraints, I guess, of the actual policy, the foundation of the policy. There will be some layers that we will probably have to come back to you guys on as we get further down the line with the LHC process, with the inclusionary zone process. So to the extent that there is a policy change that needs to be made, that will come back before the board.
Do any of the other board members have any questions or comments?
I do not
Okay.
on this end. So
So,
if we are ready, I will move acceptance of the pilot program policy and application.
Second.
okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Thank you.
So I believe that, I think we have the votes, the votes to approve the pilot program. Is that correct?
Yes. Yes, thank you. Thank you to the board. And this is a milestone for the city and the Finance Authority. You know, you heard Andronika talk a minute ago about pushing for this this concept for a while. The community has been pushing. And I think this is good progress for us. The timing, of course, with COVID-19 is not perfect, and it's a disruption to a lot of people's lives. So we got to take it as an opportunity to provide value to the community, and it's something I know this board has been wanting to do for a while. So I just, again, I know we talked about it at the last meeting, but I want to say again to the board, congratulations on getting to this milestone, because, you know, the Finance Authority has been trying to figure out a new path and add value into this ever-changing world that we've been going through. So I think this is a good indicator of the leadership the board has exhibited and, you know, pushing us in this direction. And then it's also an indication of the work that the staff has been putting in order to move the agency forward. So I think this is a great step for the community overall. There's a lot of excitement about this. We're going to email the public and developers that are in our database to let them know about this next step. And we're going to keep moving the program forward. And next time we come to you, after we get approval from the city, we'll start doing our first deals. And we're trying to do that sooner than later. We know the disruption is going to slow us down, and nobody knows when we'll get restarted. But this is a great step for the authority. So thank everyone that's been involved.
And Damon, thank you for all the work that you and the staff have put in.
Thank you. You're welcome. My pleasure.
Following action item B, we got to go to approve action item C, approval of resolution authorizing the creation of the Community Support Fund by the Finance Authority of New Orleans.
So this is a new item, and this is in response to COVID-19. I had an opportunity to talk to the chair and vice chair about the idea of the Finance Authority providing some support to the community in response to the coronavirus epidemic. Pandemic, and we are, you know, obviously working through this situation like a lot of other organizations are. But as a public agency, you know, we talked about as a team, what can we do to help out the community, you know, while keeping in mind everything that we've already had planned and ways for us to add value. So what we've done is we've created a community support fund, and the community support fund is simply an internal fund that we'll use to provide community support, direct community support in times of need. And not just in times of emergency or bad times, so to speak, but in good times as well, when we have excess revenues to contribute back to the community or reinvest into the community. And that's something that other finance authorities do. So we're not, you know, creating that out of you know, thin air. That's something that we've adopted from other places, and it's something that we've wanted to do for a while. But you know, we've tried to figure out how it fits into the overall strategic plan. But there's a sense of urgency right now, and you know, we don't have, you know, all of the resources that we would like to have right now as an organization. But we do have, you know, enough to help out the community in you know, in different ways. So I'm going to turn it over to Ms. Bianca Brown, to talk about this community support fund. She's been leading this effort for FANO, coming up with the, you know, plan structure and you know, the overall strategy for getting this funding out into the community. And remember, this is small. You know, we think it will help a few families. We of course would love to do more, and we will continue to try to do more, but it's a start for us. So we want to launch this now and be responsive and be helpful to the community. So the overall request, before I turn it over to Bianca, let me make it clear what the request is. You have a resolution in front of you for the creation of this community support fund. And essentially what this resolution says is that FANO desires to provide support to the community as it relates to our strategic plan, but just in times of need. So this request sets up a $100,000 fund, internal fund for the Finance Authority. That funding would come directly from our unrestricted reserve. So essentially, we're just taking reserve funds and segregating them specifically for the purpose of creating community impact. And that's what this resolution outlines. So Bianca's going to talk about the program in a little more detail so you can understand what it is we're trying to accomplish. And then we can come back to the resolution once the board is comfortable with approving it. So Bianca, I'll turn it over to you right now. Thank you.
Okay, sure. So the program really is the primary focus is to really support the residents within Orleans Parish. Like Damon said, the initial contribution would be $100,000. We're going to pool it into two separate funds: $50,000 for rental assistance, $50,000 for utility assistance. So basically, with a maximum benefit amount for rental assistance at $500, which will mainly primarily serve 100 residents, and the maximum benefit amount for utility assistance will be $75, which primarily serve about 666 residents. We've established guidelines similar to the city of New Orleans with their rental assistance program. And reason being that we didn't partner with them on it is because we are trying to create a pipeline from those renters and trying to transition them into some type of home ownership. So basically, we'll provide them with this rental assistance. We'll keep in contact with them and, kind of hold their hand through, once this is kind of over, developing that pipeline of some type of home ownership, walking them through our home ownership program to kind of get them to start transitioning over from renting to homeowners. In this particular fund, we won't actually cover residents that are currently receiving supplemental assistance, such as Section 8 and housing. They won't qualify for rental assistance. However, they can qualify for utility assistance. We'll have two separate application processes. The application will be housed on our website. We'll have a submission portal, so they'll be able to submit everything via that secured submission portal. And no one would have to come in to submit anything. We'll have 3 lines open where people can call, get additional information. We'll also have a dedicated email address set up for it. And like I said, our guidelines are similar to the guidelines already in line with the city of New Orleans. The income eligibility restrictions are in line with the HUD, 80% AMI and below. In the payment, we're going to structure it to go directly to the landlord. So we're going to have a form for the landlord participation. We're going to make an ACH payment directly to the landlord. And for utility, we'll make a payment directly to the utility companies, whether it's energy or sewage and water board. And basically, we're going to request documentation, mainly the documentation from the applicant that has really impacted their fund, any loss of income, anything really related to job loss, reduction in hours, anyone who has been furloughed. We just want to really verify that information, verify the household income, and then we have a multiple line of people that's going to kind of go through this. So we have an intake process. They'll kind of intake, do the application, speak directly with the applicant if they have any questions. Once that's done, it'll kind of move through the eligibility. We'll have someone review it, kind of determine if they're eligible based on the income and documentation that's been submitted. And then we'll have a final process that have kind of reviewed everything, and then we'll submit it to a county for processing. And like I said, we've kind of made it to where everything can be streamlined and done online, since we're kind of doing this remote from home, and everything will kind of be living on our website. It's a small amount, but like I said, the goal is to kind of transition these renters to homeowners. And anyone has any questions about anything? About what I've just mentioned? Hey, Angelique. Hey, Angelique.
I want to give anybody else a chance to go first if they wanted to.
Okay.
Okay, nobody's saying anything, so I guess I'll go. So this is, I'm really excited about this. This is a huge need. By using the estimates that we rely on, the ACS data, there were 50,800 rental households who were cost burdened on March 1st of 2020. And that's at all income levels. And so we are just seeing the CARES Act funding coming down. There are different ways of skinning that particular cat, right? So a good chunk of those were Section 8 residents who were cost burdened even beforehand, but now that they can come in and apply, if they had been furloughed or something like that, they're actually going to be taken care of. So surprisingly, I don't have a problem with that restriction for that pot of funds, because normally I would, but I don't this time, because you're right, they are going to be taken care of. I would also say that given your long-term plans to talk about turning these folks into homeowners, that we look at people that this is genuinely temporary, because the need is so great, right? The need is so big. There needs to be a little bit more refinement, and there needs to be some assurances. If that's what this pot of money could do, we need to be talking about assurances, because otherwise I would be urging you guys to do even less folks and really talk about sustaining them for 2 to 3 months. Because a one-time payment, if you were, on the ragged edge, on the margins on March 1st, a one-time payment is, people will be grateful, but it's still not going to stop you from getting evicted, because if you were late in March and you couldn't pay April and you won't be able to pay May, one payment will not stop you from being evicted once we come out of this. If we come out of this in June, those families will owe April, May. We help them pay March. And there's nothing to stop the eviction if they don't qualify for other assistance. So I think we need to put some guardrails on, so that you're like, in addition to, I would say no Section 8, no LIHTC units. Again, there are other resources that can be made available. No SRPP. Again, not that those folks don't have tremendous need, but if this is who the Finance Authority is going to target, I think it needs to be, it needs to be, and again, we've got to be disciplined. And the city's program has 8,000 applicants already. So there is a huge need. And I think that this is a good plan to work with folks who were cost burdened, and this is and again, the issue is the fact that people have to spend all this money on additional food because they and their children are home all day. The utilities, all of that stuff kind of crashing down on them, and they're going to be able to, they're just going to put them in a hole, and this will help them stabilize themselves, and then they can go back to, they're going to be okay after we come out of COVID-19, and then they can get into a home ownership track, because one, there's going to be a lot of units available. We have huge vacancy numbers. Those prices are going to come down. There's a real opportunity here. So I totally agree with this strategy. I just think you're going to get overwhelmed if you don't put in the guardrails that get you to the 100 or so folks that you're going to be able to help. And yeah, I think that's what you need to do with it. So I'd add those additional I'd recommend adding those additional guardrails, and all of those. Anybody in subsidized housing, we're sorry, this is not for you. This is for folks who just wouldn't even qualify for assistance, but they've hit a self-employed folks whose businesses will reopen, and they're renting now, and this will help. You can help get them in a relationship, home buyer education, financial literacy, things like that, and get them towards home ownership.
Gotcha.
So those are my tweaks to it, because I think that this is really, really needed. The folks that you guys want to target are frankly going to be the last on a lot of lists, because there's so much deeply need. I mean, and some of the people that I'm talking about are being ignored as it is, right? They're, but these folks probably won't make anybody's list.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Agreed. Yeah, that's good feedback, Andronika. And like I said, we kind of pooled it into two separate categories. If need be, that we need to reallocate or redirect funds from the utility to rental to kind of assist that and push that a little further, that initiative, we will evaluate that. Yes, but I agree with everything you said.
Because with the amount you're talking about, you're not talking about covering
Full
the rental
payment.
payments, you're talking about gap funding.
Yeah.
You know, and so let's make it gap funding, right? That there have been some interruptions, there have been some challenges. There's, you know, and again, these folks were challenged on March 1st. They just were not as vulnerable as the most vulnerable.
Yeah. Agreed.
I have a question. Also. Thank you, Antonika, because we had some of the same concerns about the amount of money and folks that we're able to help, and that being really impactful to keep, you know, on the track to renting and to home ownership after the crisis is over. But I guess the question I have about, I'm sorry, the baby crying, y'all. As soon as I start talking, he starts crying.
You gotta pick him up.
He has him right now.
Okay.
So one of the questions I had about the pipeline for the folks that we intend to serve, how are we identifying those folks and how are we ensuring that they are really on track to home ownership? Like, are they already our clients? Like, how do we know that these folks are actually going to be on that pathway to home ownership?
Yeah, so we're going to identify that in the intake process. We're going to look at some income, going to look at the job history. Really, we're going to communicate that to them, you know, that a part of this is, you know, a transition process. It just won't be a one-time event. And we're going to try to continue to follow up with them, you know. So in that intake process, that's going to be very important that we kind of identify these, early on. So we, like Andronika said, people who, you know, are really on target, really on track to that home ownership, that's who we're going to target. So yeah, we identify that early on in the intake process.
Okay, thank you.
Yes, thank
So
you.
follow up on
Question.
Giselle's point. Sorry, go ahead.
I was gonna say, for people who do qualify under the criteria, is it a first come, first serve type basis?
Yeah.
Oh.
Yes.
So there's no heightened criteria after that to kind of sift through who's most in need. It's just whoever comes first gets it.
We can add a second level. You know, based on the concerns and feedback today, I'm thinking we can revise this to add additional second level, so it won't be on a first come, first serve, to just make sure that we're serving, you know, the most vulnerable and, you know, people who really need assistance.
Well, not the most vulnerable.
No, the less vulnerable, yeah.
Right, because it does seem like you probably would get flooded with people.
Yeah.
You know, and you kind of want to make sure that the people who are in most need, as you mentioned, get the assistance.
Under the criteria, yeah.
Yeah.
Under the criteria.
Because I was gonna say, I would say like the intake tool, the portal is gonna be important. I think you may even wanna, before they submit, have a do you qualify kind of question.
Yeah.
Right. Do you make this much? What's your situation? Do you anticipate being able to go back to work, making the same amount that you were pre-COVID, you know, things like that. And then saying, you know, we're so sorry you don't qualify. There are some other programs that you might be able to take advantage of. And then if they do qualify, getting through that, and to Hunter's point, still even then, you know, making the application a little, that there's some objectivity to it, and again, I think the speed is of the essence here. You don't want folks kind of hanging around thinking that they're going to be able to get assistance right now. And so I think the Finance Authority, you know, we don't want to add to folks' misery and pain. And, you know, telling somebody no is horrible, but telling them no after making them wait a really long time and giving them hope is worse.
Yep, agreed. And we've kind of set up a timeline to kind of get the application process from the beginning to the end within 3 to 5 days, because we got so many people involved. It's like maybe 5 of us, So within 3 to 5 days, once we set those initial barriers up, we'll kind of be able to get that application through within that time frame so that we can provide a response to them. And it'll be through email. Once they submit through that submission portal, they'll be able to communicate through us through that portal, and any communications we need to send to them or to us, it'll be through that. They'll get an alert via email letting them know, hey, you have an update, something's kind of changed with your account, and we'll be available to answer any questions. But yeah, we will communicate that early on. I agree, Andre.
One more question for me. Is there an income cap, and is there a consideration of income to debt ratio? Because I find with some of the governmental assistance that goes on, they don't really consider the debt ratio. So if you make over a certain amount of money, they're not necessarily considering that you're paying for school debt, you're paying for medical insurance, you're paying for all of these other things. They may not show up initially just on your annual income.
Gotcha. Yeah. So I think what we're thinking strategizing wise is just having it mirror our current program, our current debt to income ratio, our current income qualifications, which is up to like 94,000, and the debt to income ratio is about 42%. But like I said, we won't be running a credit check. So I don't know if we'll be able to really determine the debt to income ratio. We'll probably only be able to verify the income. But yeah, so we're going to have it run parallel with our current program.
And
thank you,
Mr. Thomas, to provide another comment to your question, we have requirements in our mortgage program historically that limit the income of our borrowers, but then there's also other borrowing criteria that's set by FHA, Freddie Mac, because we're using those government resources to originate mortgages. So in many cases, we're following the rules set by those programs. But in addition to that, we have some HUD requirements, and we have local considerations as we set the income criteria for these programs. So, Bianca just mentioned that currently the maximum income is 94,000, regardless of family size. That's 140% AMI. And historically, we've offered programs around 140% AMI and lower in many cases. So we will mirror the criteria that we have in place right now for our mortgage program. And that's what people know us for. So it'll be easier to make have the conversation. But it's definitely something that we keep in mind, because we have had issues over the last couple of years not being able to originate mortgages for younger home buyers, because student loan debt is given so much credit in the underwriting process, or it's reviewed, scrutinized so heavily in the underwriting process. So that has been an issue for us, and it's something that we're working on the advocacy side to try to reverse, but also try to come up with creative program or product ideas that get around that problem.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
So are we going to, do we want to, I guess, table a vote on this, or do we want and twerk the system, or do we want to approve it, with the understanding that that's what we want to do?
Just because of the sense of urgency, I'd like to move it forward with those caveats. And maybe a couple of us, the program committee, Madam Chair of the program committee, maybe with the caveat that some of us can stay involved with staff to make sure that that there's the guide rails, the guideposts that we're talking about, the guardrails that we're talking about,
Right.
and that we don't come back in a month and go, y'all did what?
Right.
Yeah.
I agree.
Yeah, I agree. So I can circulate the final packet to program chair along with the whole program committee and get your blessings on it before we actually release to the public and move forward.
I mean, I don't have any problems with that, and I think as has been said, you know, obviously it's important that we get this done as soon as possible, you know, with a viable program, because, you know, I mean, people are hungry. I mean, the bottom line is people are hungry. So, you know, that being said, after discussion being had, I'm in favor of moving it to a vote so everybody can see where we stand. Does anybody want to
Mr.
make
Chair,
the
I'd like to
resolution?
offer a motion. Yeah, I'd like to offer a motion to approve the program with the amendment that the program committee will sign off on the final version before it is deployed. Attorney J. Brown Russell, is that a good way to make that motion?
That is. Well said, ma'am.
Okay.
Okay. So, well, I'll second the motion. Has it been seconded? I'll second it.
I second already, Steve.
Oh, okay. So I guess then we just need to vote. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Motion so carries.
Thank you again, board
Yeah,
members, and thank you for being responsive to this need, to this call. You know, as a team, we're excited about this because, as you know, we have other programs that we're preparing to launch, but we're going to launch this assistance to the community first. And it'll be a good way for FANO to get back into the market with some community support. So again, thank you for being supportive and willing to take chances. We're going to move this forward and provide that feedback to you, as Bianca stated, via email. So thank you.
Moving along under new business, we have action item D, which is approval of the resolution authorizing FANO's DBA name consideration, which I believe is for us to, I think we talked about this before.
Correct.
Change the name to Finance New Orleans.
That is correct. So we had this conversation at our last board meeting at the Ashe Center. You know, as a part of our business model change and the rebranding that we've been going through, we've been considering, you know, different ways to represent ourselves to the community. And we started getting feedback from marketing professionals, as well as just talking to some of our stakeholders about, you know, what that should look like going forward, what our name should be. And where we landed was that the Finance Authority of New Orleans does have good brand name recognition in the city of New Orleans. And, you know, with our stakeholders, there's a lot of cultivating of relationships that we have to do. We have to pick up relationships that we had before. We have to build new community relationships. And all of those things have been happening with positive momentum. So we've talked about getting a name that reflects our new business model, reflects our new image for the community, if you will. And as we studied a few names, we looked at different agencies around the country. We looked at a lot of our counterparts that have made branding changes or upgraded their names to reflect the positions of their finance authorities in their communities. We studied a multitude of options. And where we landed was simply adjusting our name to Finance New Orleans. It's, you know, the Finance Authority of New Orleans, like I said, has already been known, but Finance New Orleans shortens it. You know, it's an action that we're representing in terms of trying to bring affordable housing, economic development, more climate resilience, everything that's called for in our updated mission statement that you approved in December. So you have a resolution in front of you, another resolution that identifies Finance New Orleans as our new trade name, if you will. Our official organizational name is still the Finance Authority of New Orleans. But Finance New Orleans will be used for marketing purposes. It will be used to you know, represent the agency in all external matters for all intents and purposes. So this resolution, brief resolution, outlines our desire to continue to push and evolve our business model, and that this new trade name is a representation of that new business model, and that the board agrees to accept Finance New Orleans as a trade name. And if you do accept it, we'll begin to update all of our marketing collateral, all of our new material, our flyers that we're preparing to send out. We're going to do this across the board, and that's how we will refer to ourselves from here on. So that's all I have on the matter. Does anybody have any questions for me regarding the Finance New Orleans trade name?
I do have some feedback, and I'm starting to kind of rethink the whole rebranding piece right now. So we're talking about FANO having good name recognition, right, in the market. So if we have that, then why would we change what I guess could be considered as a strength, right? If we're talking about a SWOT analysis, it's a strength of ours. So is it wise to change that branding right now? And then also we have a lot of things going on, like a lot of different moving pieces, a lot of money coming out. I want to make sure that we're not investing too much in a rebranding campaign, knowing that we are now, putting aside, 100 grand for the community fund and things like that. So I want us to be very careful about spending money that may not net us anything more.
Sure. So my response, the first comment that you made regarding a strength of ours, which is, our standing in the community. So while that is true, we've historically been a housing agency. And the network and brand recognition that we do have is among some key stakeholders. But there's a large component of the community that does not know us, particularly the millennials, that we think will be a big target market of ours, especially if what happened, what Andronika said, talked about with market values falling. If that does manifest, then we expect millennials and younger home buyers to be a big part of the process moving forward. So they don't know us at all. But our key stakeholders do. And what my point in saying that was, we're going to continue to build upon that strength. But in order to build new relationships, we thought having a new image would serve us well, particularly with the new markets that we have to cultivate and new programs that we're going to be developing. So that was the thought process behind it. In terms of the spend, so all of these new programs that we are launching, we had to do, if you recall, in the budget process from the end of last year, we did put funding in the budget for marketing, rebrand, and new campaigns. So these things were already being done. The shortening of the name does not substantially change the work that had to be done already. So it would, I don't want to discount it as just a small change, but the technical process of adding it to all of our material is not a costly thing to do. But I understand the concern you're talking about is something different, but from a cost standpoint, it is not an expensive proposition based relative to the rest of our marketing budget.
Okay.
Do we have an idea of what the cost is?
Yes, specifically for the logo, or all of our
just for all of the, if we got to change the name on the stationery and all of this other stuff. I mean, just, what are we talking about? Are we talking about $1,000? Are we talking about $50,000?
No. So we have, again, we have flyers and materials that are being developed right now. I think in total, we have a few different invoices, but in total, we're talking less than $20,000 for everything. And that involves the creation of new program materials that we're coming out with. That involves upgrading our website. So it's a number of activities that are happening now, whether we change the logo or not. So the logo change is just an addition to, but everything else is being changed regardless.
So the logo change is being added in with all these other things, and the total is about $20,000. So the logo change is about 25% of that, or something like that.
Correct. Correct. That is correct.
Does anybody else have any other questions or feedback, or? Ms. Morris?
I'm talking and I was on mute. I'm fine. I mean, it's, I hear the concerns and I think there's a group of folks who do know us very well as FANO. And I hear the staff's concern of wanting to, kind of modernize. I'm not a big fan of personally chasing millennials in that way. I think, not that we don't need to chase new markets. I'm not saying that, but and I think you guys are going to put together something more strategic than something flashy, shiny for the kids. So I want to make sure that it's not just simply that. I do think that this would, at a time when we're coming back to housing, I think that is that we're not stepping away from it, that we want to expand, and so I think that this could be helpful. And so I don't want to. We've got to be careful about putting out money that we're not going to sure how we're going to get back. And so, and changing logos is not often a small thing. It's in the scope of the organization, it's small, but there are going to be, other things to do with it. And so, I just want us to be careful. It's especially, now, right? I do think that there's going to be some belt tightening that needs to happen. And I would hate for us to be looking back and said, I wish we hadn't spent that, whatever it's going to turn out to be. I would urge caution and, and maybe the finance committee can spend some time, looking at some of the expenditures and things like that and make some recommendations.
Yeah, I just want to be clear. I'm not against the name change. I just wanted to give some consideration to some different things that, kind of crossed my mind when talking about this. And so, I was in favor of, the Finance New Orleans name, but just in light of what's happening now, I want to make sure that we are proceeding with caution, that's all.
So, I mean, does it appear that it would be best for us to kind of have more discussion about this, with one of the subcommittees, and then revisit it, or do y'all want to submit it for a vote? How do y'all feel?
I mean, if the concern is about the financial piece, I mean, maybe we can move forward with the name change and then talk about the financial implications at a later date. Because I think that might even give the staff some more ideas on what they would want to see. And I know you've done some analysis, Damon, but the finance committee can review it.
Sure.
Do we have any finance? Hunter's on the phone, right?
Yes. Yes, I'm on the phone.
So you're a finance committee, right? I'm not, so I don't want to. I don't want to put anything on y'all that y'all necessarily don't want to do.
Obviously, I'm not the chair for the finance committee, but I am a member. I have no issue with us looking over it. When we talked about it previously, I was in agreement. I think it's a valuable move. I think it definitely makes it more marketable. I think we shouldn't undervalue making things simple and easy for people to remember. And but I do understand the concerns as well. So, I have no issue with speaking about it at the committee meetings.
And we can provide, like we will detail on some of these other issues, we can provide you with more detail on the exact cost of making this transition. Because like I said, we're at the same time rising up new programs. So this is work that would have had to be done, new logo or not. So the new logo piece, like I said before, is in addition to, but it's still an investment that, while it's a small dollar amount, it's a big investment that the board is making. So we can follow up with more detail on the cost of doing everything we'd like to do related to the marketing transition.
Sounds good.
So would y'all, go ahead.
I said, sounds good. You know, I just want us to make sure that we're, again, just proceeding with caution. Like, I feel like we've changed the logo once. And we've kind of branded, you know, something on New Orleans. And I don't want us just to keep kind of changing, like really be thoughtful about what we're doing and making sure that, you know, that we're not, you know, chasing, like Angelina said, like we're not chasing, you know, a certain demographic and keep changing our brand and who we are to serve a certain population. So that's all, just some minor concerns, nothing major, but, you know, like you said, it is a big decision where it may not be that much money, you know, it's still a big decision.
Sure. And clearly understood, we will, you know, keep all these comments in mind. And just so you understand, we're definitely not, I should say, over targeting one particular group over the other. And I was using the millennials as an example of a new market that we'll have, but there are still stakeholders that we've been involved with for a long time that we have to continue to nurture that relationship. And then they're going to be, you know, we're going to do more senior housing too. You know, that's going to be something that our community needs. So it's definitely not just one group. We have a cross section of individuals that fall within those income ranges. So we hear you loud and clear, and you know, we will certainly keep that in mind moving forward.
Thank you, Damon.
You're welcome.
With all of that in mind, I guess we're looking at voting on this resolution to change the name to Finance New Orleans, the trade name to Finance New Orleans, not authorizing, I guess, the funding until it's approved through the Finance Committee. Is that correct?
Well, you've already approved it. It's in the budget. You've already signed off on it. But we can, you know, get your informal blessing by providing you with information, just so you know this is something that's not costing us too much of our marketing budget. So we can show you how much of a marketing budget that we've set versus how much is being spent on this particular initiative. But you've already approved the marketing budget.
I got you.
Yeah, and I'm sure Mr. Brown is gonna have plenty to say about it too. So.
Yes, absolutely.
Yeah.
So
then the motion is motion to approve with the Finance Committee participating or getting routine reports on expenditures.
That works for me. Can we get a well, I guess, what do we need? We need to move for approval?
Yes.
Based on what Andronika just said?
Yes.
Can
So
somebody
moved.
move? Okay, I second. All in favor?
Sir, I'm gonna need you to stop seconding these motions. You have other.
Oh, yeah, that's right.
What did you say, huh?
I'm gonna need you to stop seconding the motions. You have other board members who do that. Thank you, sir.
Don't you got to feed that baby or something? Do I need to make things clear for you? Anyways, all in favor?
Aye.
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 Any opposed? So moved.
Thank you. So, Mr. Chair, for the remaining component of the agenda, we've sent our reports to you. And just for future reference, our goal is to send these reports out to you well in advance of the meeting, a few days, so that you can review them ahead of time, so that we can dedicate meeting time to not reviewing the monthly reports, but dedicate meeting time to the projects that we're going to have to underwrite moving forward. So just a note to the board that our goal is to be more efficient with getting you the information ahead of time. That way, any questions or comments can be developed ahead of the meeting, and we can spend our time going through issues as opposed to the reports themselves. But today we do have our reports for you. I know you didn't, we didn't get them to you on 3 or 4 days in advance like we will moving forward, but we did provide the reports, finance and investments and programs. We can go through those briefly now, if the board would like.
Please.
So I'll turn it over to Mr. Badger for our finance report.
Great. Thank you, Damon. For the finance and investments report, I'll cover or provide a market update, and then move on to covering the financial status for the month of February year to date. There's been a lot of changes in the market since we last met. And of course, the leading driver is the COVID-19 and the events surrounding that. Over the last month or two, we've seen the Fed cut the benchmark interest rate to close to 0. And we've seen them implement several programs aimed at trying to keeping the markets tame and help get money to businesses and individuals that's been challenged by the economic slowdown. And given that there's been a lot of volatility, of course, a lot of uncertainty. We've seen overall treasuries, munis, mortgage rates have been at historic lows, which is unprecedented. And a lot of that's been driven by the Fed implementing a program to purchase an unlimited amount of assets, something they've never really done in the past. Typically, they will go in and buy treasuries and mortgages, but now we're seeing them actually buy munis and corporate debt. So unprecedented times and programs now. But given the historic lows in the mortgage market, there's actually been strong demand for refinances. But on the flip side, we're seeing unprecedented numbers in unemployment. So that'll have a huge impact on the housing market. As Andronika mentioned, we're in the beginning of that. We're going to see that probably down the pike, some heavy impact to the mortgage and housing market. We're still seeing some bond activity in the housing space, and there's continuous net outflows of munis. There were, over the past week, about $255 million in bond sales from FHAs, but there's still some FHAs that were wanting to issue bonds, but they're putting themselves on hold, just given the uncertainty in the market. So we're continuing to work closely with our muni advisor and other advisors, to stay informed on the market changes and the funding resources and regulatory changes that's coming down the pipe. So with that, I'll move over to the financial status report. And so this report will cover the revenues and expenses year to date as of February. And the first page provides a comprehensive snapshot of the actual year-to-date numbers to the budgeted year-to-date numbers for the revenues and expenses. As you can see, the actual revenue number year-to-date is 21,000 to a budget of 35,000. The actual expenses were favorable to budget, coming in at 247,000. That's 68,000 less than budget. And so if you turn to page two provides details of the year-to-date revenue components. You'll see there's a downward variance to budget, as I mentioned. That's driven by not having that multi-family revenue coming in just yet, as we work diligently to get that program or the developer programs approved and launched. So we'll see that change going forward. Looking at page 3, this provides a year-to-date look at the expense components, mainly favorable across the board, driven by salaries and benefits due to open positions and marketing and advertising as we prudently deploy expenses in launching these various programs. Page 4 provides a summary of the Pathways Fund portfolio. Year to date, we have revenues of 29,000 and expenses are at 11,000. Page five just kind of gives a detailed look at the comparison month over month from January to February on our revenues and our expenses. Page 6 shows our balance sheet year over year comparison, which is fairly has remained fairly stable based or given our minimal activity and a restructuring of our business. And then finally, we have on page 7 provides a snapshot of our cash balances at February 29th, end of February. And so you'll see the total cash is 11.5. What's not here is that the previous month in January, that total was 11.4. So our cash remains fairly stable as well. Are there any questions or comments on the market update or the financial status report?
Hearing no question, pardon?
I was saying that's all I have.
Okay. There being no questions, we'll move on to the Programs Committee report.
Sure. So in front of you, you have your loan production report. This report mainly covers, highlights our loan origination activity, really provides the lender summary, including originations by lender. Then it kind of goes into talking about, kind of focus on the zip code, kind of highlights the originations by zip code, by city council district. Then it goes into the loan amounts. And then from there, it kind of goes into the loan types. As you can see, FHA and conventional. FHA has mainly been our product. We've kind of produced over 93%, really 94% in FHA mortgages. Then it kind of highlights our interest rates. So you can kind of see how many loans and where it kind of falls in the various interest rate ranges. And we've kind of did a percentage of total by that. And then it kind of goes into, after talking about that, it goes into just a program summary. So our average principal mortgage is $149,000. Our average DPA amount is about $5,552, and our average credit score is about 700. So this is some information we've kind of put together the report on monthly. As we transition to our green mortgage program, evidently we'll have a lot more in-depth information to report on. But for now, we kind of highlighting these numbers so you can kind of see where we've had a lot of activity as it relates to the overall program now, the Own New Orleans program. That pretty much concludes the loan production data report. We're gonna move on to the pipeline. So this is in reference to the multifamily developer program that we're currently working on. This is our current pipeline. This pipeline has kind of been developed from data and program information we've kind of received from the city, from their NOFA. We've kind of added these projects to our pipeline, and these are people that we're going to be tackling directly, developers, letting them know that our program is currently available. Some of them have already received funding from state and city levels, and they'll pretty much be ready to utilize our pilot program in addition to our green mortgage program as well. And additionally, I'll just highlight, we've been having underwriting committee meetings. These meetings are held on the 1st and 3rd of every Wednesday. In these meetings, we've kind of talked about our pre-application process. We've talked about the revisions and discussions to that. And as Jay kind of mentioned earlier, in that application process, it highlights, it'll initially start, we'll issue a developer this pre-application. Once this pre-application is in turn turned back in, we'll bring that before the underwriting committee. Underwriting committee will review based on certain criteria that we've kind of established within that. And then they'll kind of bring that developer in for initial interview to kind of highlight and have them speak on the project. And then from there, we'll kind of move it along where we'll issue them a official initial application. They'll complete that, and then we'll continue to move them along the pipeline through the process. And reason being for the pre-application, as you know, there's a fee associated with the application process. So we want to just make sure that the project is attainable and it's something that we really want to entertain before having them make that payment on the application. And then we've discussed internal workflow process, basically, you know, how we're going to route this application internally with our staff. We've kind of discussed that and highlighted that. We've also talked about communication follow-ups. As you know, we're working on the developer portal. So right now we have a solicitation out for software for this developer portal. Solicitations are expected to come in on the 30th of this month. So that following week, we'll be kind of moving quickly to kind of review those solicitations and make a decision on software so that we can currently implement that developer portal. That developer portal will kind of highlight, it'll house all the information there. The developers will kind of be able to sign in, track where everything is. They'll be able to kind of submit it. We'll be able to monitor compliance through this portal. We'll be able to have the debt analysis done in the portal as well. So everything, this cost benefit analysis will be done in the portal. So everything that we're currently doing manually will be housed in the portal. We're expecting the portal to be up and running at least by mid-May. Many companies that I'm pretty sure they're going to submit have much experience and background in this. We've kind of already have the templates ready and available to kind of go and move on this. So we're expecting a real fast turnaround with the implementation of the portal. And that kind of concludes my programs performance report. Anyone has any questions?
Bianca, I have a question about the software.
Okay.
Are y'all asking like developers to create like a new platform, or is there software already out there that may need to be just, I guess, modified for FANO's business purposes?
Yeah, that's exactly correct. So they have software that's already out there. We're going to do the build out on our end. We'll complete the build out. Developers will basically be establishing an account. That account where they'll be able to upload documents, kind of track the status of it. They'll be able to work with the project managers on compliance issue, making sure we get that information in. So everything basically that they would do with us in person, they'll be able to do through this portal. Gotcha. Yeah, so we're going to do the build out. The FANO team will actually do the build out. Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Yes. Mm-hmm. We have any other questions? Okay. That concludes it, Chair, on my program's performance report.
Okay, so we're at the executive management report?
Yeah, just a few comments, Chair Smith. I provided the strategic plan is in your onboard packages, or you should be able to access it through your onboard account. But in terms of strategic plan, key strategic plan assignments that you should be aware of. Number one, we talked about the Community Support Fund today. We're going to launch that program soon. The Green Mortgage Program, which we've been working on for some time now, that program is nearly ready for launch. We have a few more milestones that have to be met and agreements need to be put in place, but we're moving fast to get that program going. And then the developer program that Ms. Brown just talked about. So although we're going through the coronavirus lockdown right now, the plan is for us to use this time to educate the community on these new products, these new offerings that the Finance Authority is providing. So we're putting in a marketing plan that includes a lot of education for our stakeholders about the quality of our program. And some of the marketing package that we talked about earlier is specifically being produced to educate the various stakeholders about the program, from home buyers to lenders to realtors. So as we launch this program, the expectation on the front end is that we're going to have to spend a great deal of time educating the community about what these new programs are. So we don't expect gangbusters right out the gate. As you can see in the multifamily pipeline, we have about $600 million worth of projects that need to be financed. Not all of that is going to be bond financing. A lot of it will be pilots. We won't close every single deal on this list, but you should know that the team has met with the vast majority of developers represented on this list. So we've been pre-marketing the program, building interest all along the way. So even though it's not off the ground yet, we've spent quite a bit of time cultivating this new market. And And then the last thing to be aware of in the strategic plan is the environmental impact bond fundraise that we're working on now. Mr. Badger is leading that process for us. We received the news of the grant regarding the environmental impact bond not long before the shutdown took place. But this environmental impact bond is in short designed to help capitalize the Finance Authority and finance our transition into our new business model, finance the transition into this new world. So it's an innovative form of financing that other cities and governmental agencies are using to stimulate high impact projects, innovative projects, to get to the bottom line of physical transformation and economic development. So that's ultimately what we want. This environmental impact bond is assisting the Finance Authority with getting the capital it needs to deliver on the programs that we've talked about for the last few years. So we're at a good starting point with our current liquidity. It's enough for us to move ourselves forward, if you will, but we're going to need a lot of help in terms of scaling up these programs. So a lot of our effort is going into creating this environmental impact bond issue. We're still planning to issue traditional bonds once the market allows, but those may not be one and the same. So we may have multiple bond issues going on at once. One more traditional bond issue and the specialty environmental impact bond issue, which we're trying to leverage as many resources into it as possible. So those are the key things happening right now strategically, and that's where the team is focused. So we're launching programs, cultivating new programs, trying to turn on a revenue machine so that we can deliver more value to the community. And that's all I have to comment on the strategic plan, Mr. Chair.
We don't have any need for an executive session.
No, sir.
Is there any other business?
Not today.
I move to adjourn the meeting. Can I move to adjourn? Or am I going to get in trouble?
I think you're gonna get in trouble again. I think you gotta let somebody else adjourn.
I'll second this time. I'll second.
You can move, Hunter.
Move, why don't you move?
Hunter, you move to adjourn.
You need me to move so you can second?
No, I'm not doing anything because I'm going to get in trouble.
Nah, go ahead and second, man. Don't be scared now.
Nah, Giselle said I can't. She's told me to be quiet.
All right. I move to adjourn the meeting.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? There being no opposition, the meeting of the April 21st, 2020 meeting of the Board of Trustees of the Finance Authority New Orleans has come to an end.
Thank you, sir.
Thank
Great
you.
job.
Thank you, everyone. Have a good night.
Thank y'all.
You too.
Everybody take care.